Football came back last night. Real football, real scorecard, a rookie quarterback winning. What a night. And it was only the second most interesting thing that happened this week because in the last 3 days or so, three teams paid running backs like franchise quarterbacks. I'm Ronald. That's Ryan. Let's go. How
Hey,
you
buddy.
feeling about that running back market now?
Man, I feel pretty good about it, to be honest. I'm definitely happy for them because, there was a time recently where running backs were so undervalued and underappreciated and definitely underpaid. But I mean, they all got great contracts, but it almost still doesn't feel like enough after you consider what Zay Flowers just got. Like the
Yeah.
receiver market is so crazy that it almost still is slight at those guys to pay, to get like 75 mil when those receivers are getting like 140. But regardless,
Yeah.
I like that for those guys. They deserve it more than anybody.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we can complain about the market. It is what it is. We're happy they got paid. Does it move the needle at all for you, fantasy wise?
No, I don't think it changes much. I think everybody kind of understood, when we've already been drafting and just the whole off season that those guys were due to get paid, and they were already going to be the focal point of the offense. All three of those guys are literally the focal point and the heartbeat of their entire offense. So it doesn't change a lot for me. I think that was already understood for many of the people, in the community that those guys were the alpha, volume guys there. So it's good for them. We're happy to see that. Obviously, in dynasty leagues, it is reassuring to kind of get them locked up and to have them, locked into that role for a long time. So it does feel good. Yeah, leagues where I've got Bijan, in Dynasty, yeah, I feel good about it, and they certainly deserve it. So, good for them. Doesn't move the needle a lot for, redraft. I think we all kind of knew this would get done, but it's definitely a relief to see it nonetheless.
Yeah, Bijan got 3 years, up to 75 million. 51 of that's guaranteed. Got 37 at signing. JT got 2 years, 44 million, up to 47 million. Got 39 guaranteed. My dude, good for him. 22 mil a year. Led the league last year with 18 rushing TDs. Jameer got 3 years, up to 67 and a half. So, I'm sorry, 67 and a half, up to 75.75 mil. So you got the edge on Bijan there a little bit. He got 51.5 guaranteed, extra half mil on top of Bijan. Through 2030, he is the highest paid running back in football by average, topping Bijan 2 days after that contract. How you feel about all that? Gibbs missed the first 6 practices, just came back, probably, a non-issue. But yeah, again, these guys got paid. Like you said, not much change in value there, how we feel about them.
Right.
But we're glad they got their bag, and hopefully that, they keep that same hunger that's made them the top players in this league so far.
100%. And I don't worry about that with those guys, man. I know the pedigree of Bijan. I know the pedigree of Gibbs. And that kind of, is another point that I wanted to make tonight is just even the draft capital that those guys carried and everything sort of when Gibbs and Bijan went in the first round, I think that was sort of like almost the changing a little bit of from where people were like not taking a running back until like the middle of the second round. I think Brees Hall went there. Like we had drafts where, Jonathan Brooks and Trey Benson and these guys went a little bit later. But yeah, it was just really good to see, those guys get that capital, get that volume, get paid that money. They're certainly changing the game because of their dual ability, whether it's receiving or rushing. So, I think that's part of it too. Is the position is evolving to the point where you can't just be an early down thumper and get that huge bag. You kind of have to evolve and get that third down capability, make sure you can hold your own pass blocking and running routes and catching balls. So they can all do that. I think that's kind of why they're so valuable because they're really well rounded and they don't have to come off the field. So, but yeah, it's well deserved, man. Those guys are excellent. And I love to see the state of the running back position right now where you got Genty, you've got Jeremiah Love who got top 3 draft capital for a running back, man. We haven't seen that since obviously like Barkley. So, it's awesome to see, and it's great for fantasy because running backs are such an important part of it. And anytime you can get these workhorse bell cow guys starting to come back, like mid 2000s, when fantasy was so great for running backs, like it's a relief, man. It's so cool to get those guys that you can just bank on.
Hey, football's back, and the first game told us almost nothing. So we had the Hall of Fame game yesterday in Canton, Ohio, which I was just in Canton for the Fantasy Football Expo. Cool little place. They love them some football. and we got a high scoring game there. Carolina 33, Arizona 30. We had undrafted rookie Haynes King, the greatest. From old Georgia Tech, ran in from 5 yards out, no time left to win it. We had Arizona's third round pick, Carson Beck, going 15 of 19, 188 yards and a TD. We had Slovis to Bryson Green for a go ahead TD. You know, it's good to have football back, but did this game mean anything? Did you take anything away from this? Any fantasy needle movers?
You know, I think more than a normal Hall of Fame game. There are a lot of times there's not really any kind of headliners or anything, and where at this one you kind of at least got Carson Beck, where you know that he already was looking at potentially getting starts this year because they're going to want to see what he can do, and before they have potentially a high pick in the 2027 draft with all these crazy quarterbacks coming out. So yeah, I think it was extremely important to kind of have obviously all the eyes on the Hall of Fame game, all the fans, all the fantasy players, and all anybody using any kind of platform or whatever is watching this, whatever kind of actions on it. But yeah, I mean, I think it was awesome to see Beck come out and kind of silence some of the haters because a lot of people love to just kind of pick on him and make all kind of narratives that aren't all necessarily true. There were games where he choked away, late sometimes at Georgia and did some bonehead things, but he always had tools. He was always regarded as a good prospect. Even at Georgia, if he came out, he would have been like a first-round pick potentially at one point. So, he's got tools, and he put them on display. He was really pushing the ball down the field. I think he had one ball down the left sideline, like 45-yard ball. He had really good juice on it. It was put in a perfect spot. On the one touchdown that was sort of like that fade toward the back pylon, had great touch on that ball. Like, you can't make that up. He's got the size. He's got the accuracy. He's got better mobility than people expect, like more so like getting out of the pocket and moving in the pocket than like rushing. But yeah, he looked so good, and I think that was a really important thing. Like, we've seen in the past where players kind of get this momentum going and get their groove going, in camp and having strong preseasons, and that changes the outlook of their whole career. Because if he can string together some more of these games, I don't know how you feel, but man, he's going to probably push for playing time a lot sooner than he would have had he not looked that good, in my opinion. Sure. So I think it could change it for him, getting some more reps this year in live game action if they lose a couple early.
Yeah, opportunity matters. So keep those guys on your deep league benches in the back of your heads, because these folks end up being league winners. Those sleepers we all love. All right, let's talk about somebody who's not such a sleeper these days, and maybe not old news, but probably a little underappreciated these past few years, is one Mr. Mahomes, who's unlikely to play in the opener per Reed, who said there's a pretty good chance where he doesn't play him. Towards ACL back in December of last year. He's been cleared for full participation for camp since day one, practicing in a brace. Casey opens the 14th versus Denver. How you feeling versus Mahomes in the short term versus the rest of the season?
He's moving around. I've been trying to really keep my eye on that one because, his progress has been like he's kind of in uncharted territory. He's way ahead of like a normal rehab schedule. So it looks to me like they won't play him in the preseason. There's no reason to play him in the preseason. He doesn't need those reps. Would it be nice to get him out there a little bit? Yeah, but you ain't going to risk it. He's a guy who's already got Super Bowls under his belt, and he's had all kind of success. So you want to make sure he's right before you put him out there. Even if he looks, I don't know if he looks 100% because I did see him. I saw him take off a couple times, and he looked pretty good, but it wasn't like as explosive. So, he might have to change his game, but I do expect to see him out there week one of the NFL season. I don't think he gets any kind of preseason action or anything like that, but yeah, I think coming out, he looks ready to go, and he's thrown some, good balls around, and Reishi's out there, and they look pretty solid, man. I'm not sleeping on him. He's such a competitor. I think that's the thing that separates him from so many of these other, really good quarterbacks. It's just like his mindset and just his will to compete and win, and like how Kobe had it, where like, he's going to find a way to get out there. He's going to find a way to win. So I don't think it's any different for Mahomes, man. I really like him to come out, play week one. I'm sure he'll end up having some success, even if he's probably a little bit more in the pocket than he's used to, in the past, where you see him make those crazy plays outside of the pocket.
Speaking of some crazy plays, we got a brand new offense in Miami. Yeah, welcome to Miami. Bienvenidos a Miami. We got
Party in
Malik
the city.
Willis. We need some music and dancers for next time.
Yeah, right, please.
We got Willis as the starter, 3 years, almost 68 million. Signed in the spring, comes over from Green Bay where he backed up Jordan Love for 2 seasons. Got a new era under head coach Jeff Hafley. Miami opens at 13th at Vegas. Should be an interesting game. They had a rough second day of camp. It's tough to know what to expect from camp. People are working out the kinks. We have in one practice two TDs going to Malik Washington, another to Caleb Douglas. Some big plays by A-Chain, got another TD by him. The Slowick praised his offensive, the OC Slowick praised the work ethic and the relationships. So there's some exciting pieces in Miami, but the offense as a whole kind of up in the air. So as fantasy players, if you're not a diehard Miami fan, how are you approaching everybody outside A-Chain?
Even if you include Achan, to me, it's still too murky to like anyone at their ADP at this point. If I am going to like anyone, if we're talking redraft, I would probably like to have Malik Willis like as my quarterback 2 on my bench, just because we know how this goes with guys with big tools and rushing upside like crazy. His rushing upside is as good as, as a lot of these guys in this league. So I think that kind of separates him, for like none of those other back end quarterbacks in that like mid 20s, early 20 range have that kind of upside. So even if that offense struggles and they're not putting up a ton of points, but he can go out and find a way to have like 11 or 12 carries for like 65 yards and the occasional, touchdown running it in. I think that that's really good. So I would be happy to roll the dice on Willis later rather than mess with any pass catcher outside of probably Greg Dulcich. I would think that he's probably the one that's the most solid and the most sound. The one with probably the most upside is Caleb Douglas. He's been balling in camp and making big plays, but there's another wild card there too. Like Chris Bell is there. He's on the pup right now, but he had all the buzz coming out of Louisville that he was like the A.J. Brown type prospect with the size and the speed, but he was sort of unpolished a little bit, but super physical, just a physical freak. But he had the knee injury, so he's coming back. He's a wild card there. The offense could go so many different ways. They do have some explosive players, but they don't have like really proven players outside of Achan. So it's hard for me to trust it. And even at Achan's ADP, if he's going like early to mid second round in redraft right now, just to my last point with Willis potentially taking some of the, work inside the 5-yard line away from him and those kind of things and scrambling as opposed to checking down, maybe taking some catches away. Anytime you have that rushing quarterback, it's like when Richardson was playing a couple of years ago with the Colts and everybody was like, he was going to take away from Taylor a little bit. So, it's I'm fading Achan, but I would probably roll with Willis, and especially in like two quarterback leagues, but that's quite an interesting slip up. But couldn't draw it up any better than that if I wanted to. But yeah, man, I like Malik Willis. I think he's the guy to go get if you're going to take a shot on somebody. Maybe Caleb Douglas late, but in Dynasty probably Chris Bell. But that's all, man. Nothing too crazy there.
It's funny. I feel like for certain things like running quarterbacks, we appreciate them more and the better well-known names, and we give those guys some extra credit. The Trevor Lawrences, maybe not quite as much these days, Lamar. But, for someone like Caleb, or Malik, sorry, it's like that's a lot of value out there sitting in the deep late rounds, even in one QB redraft leagues. Because whereas your typical QB might need 300 yards and a couple touchdowns to be supremely fantasy relevant, like you said, those 10, 12 carries, 60 yards, that's a touchdown, right?
Bingo.
Another touchdown on top of that, that's 12 points. He doesn't need to have 3 passing touchdowns and 300 yards. He can get by with 150, 180, use them legs, and all of a sudden you've got a guy who's maybe not top 5 of the position, but, having top 10 of the position that didn't cost you anything, goes a long way.
The rushing upside helps with that floor, man. I mean, people underestimate the fact that if you're getting a guaranteed 6 or 7 points just from rushing yards and the potential to have that, occasional touchdown, That's big time, dude. Like you can't find that even with guys up top with Burrow and some of these guys. Like those add up, man. You can get another 600 or 700 yards, another handful of touchdowns over the year. Yeah, I mean that helps a lot. So yeah, I like Willis, and he's got big tools, man. Like coming out of Liberty, everybody knew he had a rocket arm. Everybody knew he had like good legs, but sort of was like wildly inaccurate sometimes. But I think he's really made progress. He's got better touch, and he's layering some balls in. So I really hope he does well, because I know they paid him, whatever, 67, 70 mil, which is cool. But, man, if they turn around and have a bad year, dynasty managers might not like what happens with him if they have a top 3 pick and they're looking at a good quarterback.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of the market not liking some stuff, there's been some slow, quiet fallers that I don't know if there's no crazy news about these folks we're going to mention, but maybe just the market is adjusting or feeling certain ways over time. We've got Devontae Adams slipping down a tiny bit. He had a career low 53% catch rate last year. Seems to be at some TD regression risk. He's not old in real life at 33, but for NFL, that's a tough life. It's hard on your body. We've got some injury concerns there. We've got Xavier Worthy out in KC. He's down about 10 to 138. Some injury concerns, plus, Mahomes possibly having some availability issues. Got Alec Pierce out in Indy, down 5 or 6 spots in the 80s. That's partially tied to Daniel Jones' health, but also he's got some target competition,
Yep, and his own health.
Yeah, for sure. So how you feeling about some of those guys and how they're creeping down a little bit?
For Alec Pierce, I sort of was fading him as soon as I heard that he had that injury and he was due to miss the entire offseason. It didn't really sit well with me because he's a guy where, everybody loves to think about, the potential if he doubled the amount of catches that he's had. Obviously, the last 2 seasons, he's led the league in yards per catch, which is incredibly impressive, especially in real life. But for fantasy, that doesn't really mean much unless you're getting huge bonuses for big plays or something. Mm-hmm. But you look at 47 catches in a PPR league, and it's just not all that impressive. They paid him the big bag, so everybody's hyping him up. And you got a guy like Josh Downs who's been kind of waiting in the wings, and who's a PPR stud for his entire career in college and coming up through, who's been waiting for this opportunity to play in 2 receiver sets. You got Tyler Warren, who's already absolutely going nuts in camp. He had like a crazy touchdown I saw today. So Daniel Jones is looking sharp and Warren's looking sharp. Downs is rumored to be doing extremely well, and he's missing valuable time now. Pierce is a guy where he's already not catching a ton of balls, and he's missing, most of the offseason, it looks like here, man. So he's going to be behind the 8 ball, and his ADP right now is higher than Downs. And Warren is probably being slept on a little bit too because those guys are getting work, and one of them is not. So he's a guy that I'm fading, that I'm not interested in. Maybe in dynasty leagues late or whatever, but redraft I probably won't have any Pierce shares at all. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, if I can get a super, I don't know, it depends on the end of my draft, but that's a super late round pick for me, if at all. There's just not that the player isn't talented, but availability, health, time on field, target share, all that stuff matters. And sometimes you just, especially those late round picks, you just want to swing more for the fences and not have a guy with such a low floor, such a known low floor.
Bingo. Yeah, the old dreaded goose egg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nobody loves it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the opposite of some of these fallers and talk about a riser who, you called this before. And to you folks who are doing early drafts, hopefully you got him at a discount. But a few weeks ago, Neighbors was, dropping a little bit slowly, concerns about the health of the pup. All of a sudden, no more pup. He's moving back up into the 3rd round.
Yep.
How you feeling about that?
I love it. If you're drafting right now and you can get Malik Neighbors in the 3rd round, absolutely smash pick because he looks like he's so far ahead of what everybody was saying, where he was just a couple short weeks ago. But, he looks like he's fully on track for week 1. And I don't know if they were like slow rolling us or whatever, but he looks like he's going to be good to go. Obviously he's at MetLife. Nobody likes to think about that turf or whatever. So there's always going to be risk for like future problems. But where it stands right now, he's going in a position where like he's way too good to be going behind the guys that he's going. Like if he's going in the 3rd round, he talent wise, if everything like if you put that health risk out the window, he's going up in the top of the second to the middle of the second round like all day long. And you're talking about like Drake London goes right after the turn at the first and second. Like I would take a healthy Neighbors over Drake London in his situation right now, and I wouldn't even think twice. So, yeah, I mean, that's a steal. You minimize a lot of that risk with where you have to get him, especially, like a lot of the good players are already kind of off the board at that point. So might as well. Absolutely. I would even say late second feels like a really good price. I actually took him in a mock draft, I think with like 211 or 210, the other day. So I really like him at his price. And he's going to keep rising up boards. I mean, people are going to see him practicing in full, and he's going to be doing well. And people are like, "This is a no-brainer. Why are we like sitting around with him? Why is his ADP at third round ADP when he's clearly good to go?" So yeah, he's a guy to be targeting. If you can get him right now, man, if you can get in Dynasty for a relatively cheap price, get him, because his price is only going to go up from here till the season starts, and then once the season starts, forget about it. You probably won't get him.
Yeah, it might be too late. I mean, I think the time to get him was when the news was murky, but now that it's positive.
Exactly.
Don't be shy. Send your offers out, but just know that, there's no secrets anymore about where he's at.
True.
But maybe if you can't get him, you go target one, Jaden Higgins, who is trending up and up and up. He recently beat all-pro corner Derek Stingley in camp coverage, including a 20-yard catch on a team third down. Colin said he's hooping right now. I can't wait to see him rock it out when it really matters. And ESPN's Houston Camp Intel is now headlined around Higgins making that year 2 leap. The board hasn't adjusted just yet, but more chatter like this, he's going to continue rising up. So how you feeling on Higgins, and what's the top end of where you take him?
Hey, that's your guy. You were just talking him up, man, and I was getting buzzing. So kudos to you, man. Absolutely give you your props when I can, but I like Higgins. I think a lot of people see a 6'4" receiver and a bigger receiver, and they think they can only play the boundary, they can only go up and get it or whatever. But even at Iowa State, man, when he was there, you can move him inside. You can put him at any of the 3 receiver positions, and he can get open. That's the thing. He can run routes in the middle of the field. Like, he's not like one of these big outside guys that's just a jump ball guy. Like, man, he's savvy. He's good. He's big. He's super physical and uses his body the right way in the middle of the field. He's got, good length and can get to a lot of different balls that most people can't. So, I really like him, and especially when you consider the fact that Nico is aging a little bit, and he's kind of had those nagging soft tissue injuries with his hamstring and all that jazz the last few years. Like, man, if Nico goes down, you could see Higgins just getting an absolute monster target share. So at his ADP, I really do like him, and I agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised if he keeps on moving up, man. I think he's definitely a good one. He's a good player for sure in my book. I always thought so.
I feel like some guys they get kind of lucky in that they don't immediately have to be the man, and that quietly creates opportunities for them because they're not the focus of the coverage of the defense. So we've seen over the years, his long-lost cousin, T. Higgins, have some luck with that. We see that with Jordan Addison over the years. Like, George Pickens out in Dallas, right? It's like, if you can be beside the alpha that has some, you can eat too. Right, so I hope that plays out for this Higgins as well, but excited to see what happens.
Yeah, if Stroud can bounce back, he's a very, very good candidate to have a good year, Higgins.
Well, speaking of quarterbacks, how you feeling about the Minnesota stuff with old Kyler Murray and all the rest? How that affect our, second favorite receiver?
Man, I was going to say, I think it looks like Murray's sort of taking control of, I don't know if it's based on performance because they've been sort of hot and cold. I think, neither of those guys have been perfect, by any means. I don't think, McCarthy or Kyler have been.
He's young, though.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Not an excuse, but.
For sure. But he's definitely inconsistent. Murray's been super inconsistent, turning it over a little bit. But they've both had, again, flash plays. So, but it looks like in the last few days, the snap share and the reps with the ones are going in favor of Murray. Yeah. So that's sort of telling. I think that they're sort of building towards naming him, the guy there. Which is good. It's probably helpful, at least to some extent, for the pass catchers, whether it be, Addison or Jefferson or, any of those guys there. Jennings or, anybody, Hawkinson, if he can get a little bit better, I guess, this year. But, I think that's good news. I think Murray should give them at least a slight boost. I still am a little bit leery of Jefferson where he's going, just because I don't love Murray a ton. That fit
Right.
doesn't scream, like good things, because Jefferson is getting loose over the middle. He wants you to just drop back and rip it. That's not Murray's game. So I could see frustration building. But other than that, I do think it's slightly helpful. I think he actually might do well with Addison, though, because Addison is that guy that can kind of get loose behind guys. And even early in camp, I think that they were sort of the ones that looked like they had good chemistry brewing before Addison got a little bit banged up. But yeah, he was hitting them. Kyler throws a nice deep ball, when he's out bailing out of the pocket and kind of looking for things down the field. Yeah, exactly. He's like, I can't see anything. I got a dip.
Running for my life.
Yeah. So then he kind of retreats, and then he definitely has a tendency to make like incredible plays on the on the move with like off platform throws and those things. So that pairs well with Addison. So I do still like him because he's really good as a vertical threat, even though he's like kind of a smaller guy. He's got just that wiggle and savvy routes and stuff, puts dudes on skates and gets free deep. So, yeah, I think that he goes well with him. Jefferson, I'm curious to see. I'm sure they'll look to feed him just to keep him happy. The last thing they want is for him to, like, request a trade. You know what I'm saying? So,
you read my mind. I was just thinking that Addison would be a better fit because Justin Jefferson, his game, and maybe Kyler Murray and where he's at, and the line and stuff aren't going to quite align. So I'm betting that Minnesota trades Jefferson at some point. We get a sneaky, not amazing year from Addison, but a much better year than where you drafted him at. So keep a lookout. And we're not fading just Jefferson the talent right now.
Of course, he's
situation.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Jefferson, if you ask me, is top 2 receiver in the league. There's no doubt that talent-wise, in terms of what he does, I'm never going to ever say that that's something on him because he's an excellent man. He's such a technician. Like if people are giving him a hard time, man, that's just rough, man. He's elite. He's as elite as elite gets out there. So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Let's talk about Seattle now. We have Price taking opening first team reps in the first full team scrimmage in camp after Halani. You got Charbonnet on the pup. How you feeling about Seattle and what they're doing there? They one of the bigger bus candidates this year, and outside of JSN, I mean, how you feeling about the rest of the team?
I really like Price. I think he's going right around somewhere around round 7 or so, pick 75 through 80 or something ish. Which screams right now pretty good value because he's actually been kind of tearing up camp. I've seen a ton of really good highlights. Even just like players that are on the defense, really good players like Devin Witherspoon and those guys. They were looking on the field like, man, eight can move, man. He's moving around like crazy. Like he keeps his legs, he keeps low to the ground, and he's got really good vision. I think that there's some things where like you didn't necessarily see it at Notre Dame just because he didn't get quite the volume that you wanted to see him get. And it's just not his fault that he had the best running back in the nation in front of him when he was arguably like the second best. So I think that he's shown a lot of burst and really, really been making plays. Even in the passing game, I saw him put a dude on skates. The dude fell down and he just carved up the defense. And dudes were like, man, like, damn, this guy is fast, man. So he's fast. He's got good burst. He's physical. He can run you over. There's a lot to like about Price, especially, that he's going late. But I'm not worried about Halani. I've watched him play, all the way back to Boise State. He's solid. He's okay, but he's a backup, grind it out kind of running back. Like, when you're down real bad, you need a guy to come get you 2 or 3 yards of carry. Put him in. He'll get that for you, but nothing more than that, in my opinion. So Charbonnet's the wild card, too. I don't know how you feel about it, but it seems like week 1 is such a stretch, with him having surgery in February, I believe it was. So that would be super, super short. It would almost be that would be like a miracle if he played week 1. So they might be, again, slow rolling on this one, where he might start on the pup. He's already on the pup here, so he could miss the first 4 weeks. I wouldn't be shocked. And at that point, it seems like Price is going to have a real good chance to get a head start here.
Yeah. Yeah, health is tough, and sometimes coming off an injury, trying to get back to it right away, people get re-injured, and it's hard to get back to speed. And so we'll see how that shakes out. All right, let's talk about some new blood. So same idea as last week. One guy each outside the top 50. I won't say that we've never said out loud because I think we talked about one of my dude earlier. But who you got? Who's a lesser known name? Maybe not lesser known, but not enough talked about that you're going to pick.
Going to roll with Jonathan Brooks, the formerly the Texas running back, the first running back taken in the draft just a couple years ago. Obviously, he's had a couple tumultuous seasons here with health. Those knees have not been his friend. So, but he's coming out. Credit to him and the rehab and everything that they're doing there. He's getting reps with ones in camp. You've got Canales talking him up, and not necessarily a slight to Chuba, but with the way it went down last year with kind of Dowdle, getting hot and taking over that role, I don't think it necessarily instills like a lot of confidence, from all of us that paid attention to that, in Chuba going in, where like you already saw Canales sit him down once for the backup. So if he does come out and get the lion's share, his leash isn't going to be super long, in my opinion, especially when you have a good young talent like Brooks pushing you. He's super explosive. He's always been that way. And if he can regain that form, which early in camp, from what I've seen, it looks like he's kind of pressing the line, getting through, running around, feeling comfortable. So if he gets back to being him, man, yeah, watch out, because he's going awfully late. And as a dart throw at the running back position, like there's not a lot of guys at that point that have more upside than him. So yeah, maybe his floor isn't great. That he's had those injury woes. As of now, he's still competing with Chuba. But if all goes well, and if he takes care of business, man, and stays healthy, his upside is crazy. He could definitely be the 1A in that offense, or take the one role completely. You don't know. I wouldn't rule it out. So yeah, Jonathan Brooks, go take a good dart throw on him, man. I don't think you'll be mad about it.
Yeah, we never know year to year. There's only a few guys that the guys talked about earlier, Robinson, Gibbs, that get that bag, and they're the dude. Year to year, I mean, I wish I had the statistics, but I feel like every year there's 5 or 10 people at every position that come in unexpectedly, lock it up, and people get great value from them. So, be open to taking some of these dart throws, because every once in a while they're going to hit, and you're going to get some massive value there.
Bingo. Yeah, you got to be able to see the upside, man, and it's very easy to see with him for sure. So why not at that price point? You're basically the risk is already baked in. If he doesn't hit, you'll still be able to manage yourself to a championship, and if he does, man, that is the icing on the cake for your team. I'm telling you.
For sure. Similar with my dude, we talked about him earlier, Malik Washington, third-year receiver, 6th-round pick in 2024. Now all of a sudden, atop a brand new offensive Miami depth chart at wideout. Only had 46 catches in 25 among the player on the rosters. A-Chain caught more. But, he's looking good. Caught a couple of touchdown practices in camp from a new quarterback. ADP, very cost-friendly, outside the top 200. One of those upside dart throws. You're not finding a lot of people who are the dude on their offense at that ADP. So take a, small little bet there. If it works out, you're way ahead. If it doesn't work out, who cares? Drop it, move on. And speaking of drop it and move on a pick that late, how long are you giving them? Are you giving them 1 week, 4 weeks? How you feel?
It really depends. I kind of like to treat every single situation like its own. But in a situation like that with Washington, I want to see how the snaps, more important than even production, like you want to see production, but you want to see him out there being used. You want to see him on the field over 70% of snaps or whatever, so that he's got a role. And if you see those snaps sort of diminish over those first couple of weeks, like say Chris Bell comes off the PUP and he comes out and is playing a ton, or Caleb Douglas has a really big week 1 and then week 2 takes over, and you see Washington, snaps decline like heavily or go, way down, then I would have my guard up, and kind of like if there are guys on waivers that I like more, after the first 3 or 4 weeks, if there's that consistent decline like week to week, I would be comfortable, like you said, around week 3 or 4. Say he comes out and doesn't produce, but he's playing 80% of snaps week 1. Okay, he doesn't produce again week 2, and he's down to 60%, and that trend continues. Then time to cut bait, and hop on waivers and probably get rid of him, because especially in a situation with him, you've got 2 younger guys on a team that's probably losing games, and they're going to want to see them. So I would be comfortable, right around the first 3-4 weeks, if not. But if I see promise, obviously, then you hold them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. I don't want to overreact, but also seasons both short and long, so I don't want to let that water overboil and sit there too long. So be sure to keep stuff and then react right when the right moment is. If you want to know when that is, stay listening, because we'll guide you that way. Let's lock in some new stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on the record. Malik Washington, top 40 receiver. Calling this now. And so, question for you, and I'm looking for a week here, or a week range. When does Brooks lead Carolina in carries by? What week?
I'm looking around, thinking around week 8ish or so, maybe week 7 or 8. I think that they're going to want to, first of all, they're not going to want to put that many miles on him at first and kind of put that strain on him at first. So they're going to want to build him up gradually. But I think it's going to get to the point where, and, they made the playoffs last year. They've been a competitive team. Ultimately, they're going to want to put the best players out there, So at that point where they're comfortable, I think in the middle of the season, right, where the second half of the season is starting, week 8ish or whatever, I think that he takes over at the very least the 1A role. I think that he definitely should have the edge over Chuba the second half of the season. First half, I would say Chuba, maybe he's not going to be the most efficient, but he'll probably get more volume, and I would think Brooks is more efficient with his touches. But in the second half, I could see both of those being on the side of Brooks. So I would say 7-8ish or whatever, and then the rest of the way, he has that league-winning potential.
Man, 7 weeks. So you're talking about week 7, the value starts. Are you willing to sit on him for that long to get that? I'm not saying he's going to be useless the first 7 weeks, but you're going to get that return much later. So you're willing to sit on a guy that long, or you're more likely to let somebody else draft him and then float out a trade offer when they're getting impatient around week 3 or 4.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly would be looking to buy him after the first couple of weeks because I think that most of the people in the community understand, that that's just sort of going to be the nature of it. And that doesn't mean the first 7 weeks he doesn't have value. It just means that he won't be a workhorse or the one there. But it doesn't mean that he can't be a 1B there. Like he can still come out and get double-digit touches every week. And if you're efficient enough with it in an offense that should be at least halfway decent, you could have some touchdowns. You should have spike weeks. You should have some big weeks. Might not be all good, but certainly enough to want to keep him. And at a position like running back, how thin it gets. Receivers you can kind of replace when you see, there's like 4 or 5 receivers playing on a given game for a team. Running back, you only have a few. So if you think that there's that flicker of hope, for a running back, you're going to want to keep him no matter what. And if you don't have him, you're going to probably want to look to buy him if somebody is that, you're sensing that somebody's getting a little frustrated with him. So yeah, just due to position and ability and all of those things, I'm totally comfortable holding him for quite a long time.
Okay, there you go. You heard it from the champ, the greatest, the expert. Well, that's all we got for y'all tonight. Feel free to tune back in. Have a few more episodes for you next week. Any final thoughts for the folks?
Man, just it feels so good to get some game action. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys are paying attention to the preseason because, if you've got drafts coming up later this month, there's a lot of information that you're going to need to digest. So I suggest you do it and get as much as you can, get a good feel, and if you don't think that you are, then hit us up, man. We're always available. So,
yeah, and speaking of drafts, don't forget about that draft kit. It's free right now for the first 1,000 people. fantasyboss.com/draft-kit. Come and get some expert insights, takes, and hopefully help you crush your drafts. All right, y'all. We'll catch y'all next week. Give us that music, Ryan.
Yeah, buddy. Till next time, man. Have a good night, everybody.